Hi everybody, welcome back. Episode 3 of my knitting podcast. I am Brittany and I am coming to you from St. Louis, Missouri. And it is a long weekend here. We are going to be celebrating President's Day on Monday. And it's been a little bit longer than what I originally intended. So I thought I should just hop on, try to film something, try to record something, upload it, and then hopefully I can start making these a little bit more regularly. So the first thing that I wanted to talk to you about was my half and half triangles wrap. So last time I recorded, I was so close to having this thing finished, and it is. I have not blocked it yet, but it is completely off the needles. This is the half and half triangles wrap by Pearl Soho. I made it in the largest size, and I followed the pattern pretty much exactly the way that it was written. I did do a slip stitch on the edge. I probably needed to slip more stitches than what I actually ended up slipping. But the first color, the blue, is really called blue, and it's from Pearl Soho's line Linen Quill. And then the more of the cream colored is Pale Oats. And this thing is wonderful. I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with it, honestly. I've gone back and forth about if I like the pattern. I was like super close to finishing it last time. And I said, I already know which one I want to do next. And then it's been a couple of weeks since I have finished it, and I haven't worn it out of the house still. And I actually have my other one sitting behind me, and you can tell my shame. I still haven't even cut off the ends of this one. So this is an interesting project for me because I really do enjoy knitting it. I love the process. I think it's a really clever design. I love the end product. I don't think it works well as a wrap. So I like to wear mine are wrapped around kind of this way, and this is bulky. This is bulky, and I don't think is the most flattering look for me. And I could definitely see people kind of wearing it more in the traditional shawl wrap way, like around this way. And I think this kind of makes sense if you're like at a computer and you're typing away, but that's not the kind of job that I have. I think it would be fun to just have it kind of on like this while you're watching a show, like cozying up at the end of the day. But I haven't done that. I have not done that. So I don't know if I do have any ambitions of making another one of these any longer. I like them. I don't know if I love them. I don't think I can say that I love them because I've never worn them. But I do think that they will come in handy as like a crib blanket or a car seat blanket might be really nice. So I think I'm allotting them to that category of my life. But it is finished. I do recommend the pattern. Just know if you are somebody that kind of wears a wrap in that way that I showed you to begin with, looks a little silly on me. It might look wonderful on you. And the other thing that I think I need to do is just actually lay it out, block it, and then see if my measurements line up with the pattern. Because, I mean, these are pretty huge. And I know that I knitted the largest size, so maybe they are intended to be that large. But I feel like I've seen people wear their half and half, and it didn't look as silly on them as me. So things to think about, things to do. That'll be on my agenda. The next thing that I wanted to show you, I spoke a little bit about on the last episode. I said that I need to knit up some socks. So I have actually done that a little bit. So my new plan is to always have a sock going in my bag when I'm like waiting around places. So I picked up lunch for my coworkers yesterday and it was supposed to be ready and it was not ready. And I was sitting in that restaurant and it was a very busy restaurant for over a half hour. And I was so grateful because I had a sock to knit on and I almost finished the whole sock. Well, not the whole thing, but like I almost finished from where I was while I was sitting there and waiting. So I was like, this is a wonderful thing to just be carrying around in my purse. It doesn't take up that much space. And I found a new sock pattern that I love. So without further ado, I will show you finished object. Now they are not blocked. However, I did put them on the sock blockers just so that you guys could see them a little bit better. I knit these. This is my first time using the Shopple Wool Zauberball. I'm sure I'm saying that incorrectly, so I apologize. I think it's a German company. It is a 75% superwash, 25% nylon. I got this at a yarn crawl that kind of went throughout the St. Louis metro area and then over into Illinois. I don't remember the name of the yarn shop, but it was a bead store with yarn and they had an amazing selection. I was so shocked because I think the name was like The Bead Place. And I was like, well, I'm sure they're only gonna have like a small little area of yarn. And actually they had a ton of yarn that I wanted to try out. So they had Noro and they had this particular brand that I had seen quite a bit. And this is in colorway 1660, the Flusbett colorway. And I love it. I got so many compliments as I was knitting these and just looking at that color change. So I tried to match them to begin with so that at least the tops would be similar when I had boots on. And it sort of ended up matching along the way. The heels are where they really don't match, but I thought they turned out pretty good. And I very much like knitting socks. I think it's going to be that purse project for me. I'm gonna have a pair at work. I don't really have any knitting time at work, but I like to think that I might. And then I will have them in my purse so that when I'm waiting at Teddy's soccer practice for his soccer club, I can have those out when I go and pick up lunch from my coworkers and it takes like 2 hours to do. I can be knitting on some socks. And let's see, what else do I have to say? Oh, the pattern for this. This is a new pattern for me. It is the vanilla sock pattern, which is a toe up sock. So you actually start down here and work your way up. It has an Afterthought heel. So you put in a little line of stitches here and then you pull that waste yarn out. And when you pull out that waste yarn, then you can pick up, well, then you continue just knitting the rest of the leg of the sock. And then I did a 2x2 rib at the bottom, which is really the top at the end of the sock. And then you go back and you pull out your waste yarn. And when you pull out your waste yarn, then you have your heel stitches and you just knit a little heel. And this is a nice way, or like a nice image to show, because you can see like this is where I would have had it. And then these are where I divided up for the heel. This is my first time doing an Afterthought heel. I have a lot of like little New Year's resolutions or New Year's goals or knitting goals. And one of my goals was learning about this Afterthought. It seemed scary to me. I originally thought people were like cutting into their knitting. You did not have to cut into your knitting to do this. And cutting into my knitting, I mean, it's not something that I would never do, but it does kind of freak me out a little bit. And I know that those stitches aren't supposed to go anywhere, and that, you know, they really like to go whoosh, and like when you have a drop stitch, but if you're cutting this way, then they should just stay. But it makes me nervous. But this was a wonderful pattern. I very much enjoyed it. It is a free pattern from Nurturing Fibers. So if you are interested in an Afterthought heel, honestly, I really wish that I had learned this pattern before any other pattern because it was just so easy. And you're just like knitting in the round, like over and over and over again. And I learned with double pointed needles, and I did cuff down, and then I did a heel flap and gusset, and then with that gusset part there were like some increases or decreases in here, and then you also had decreases for the toe. For this particular pattern, you're just, it has a really cool cast on that I hadn't done before. I think they call it, let's see, I have the pattern over here. I'm not going to show you the pattern just in case it isn't free. I'm pretty sure it is. But it is the figure 8 cast on. So like you do this figure 8 with the yarn around your needles, and then you're just increasing along for your toe. And then once you get the appropriate number of stitches for your foot, which for me it was 64, I believe the pattern is written to 64 as well, then you're just knitting in the round. I invested in a shorty circular kit from Gu. So I have been knitting my socks on shorties, which I know are probably not for everybody. It does take slightly different hand muscles than magic loop would or your DPNs, your double pointed needles, but I love it because I can throw it in my purse and not worry about anything. So once you're knitting in the round, then you put in your waist yarn, you just keep knitting in the round over and over again, 2x2 rib, bind off, pick up, and then this section is the same kind of decreasing as your toe. So it's like the easiest to remember pattern of all time. I love it. I might be a convert just because I don't need my little index card with my special notes for socks written down. It is all good the way it is. And then I have another sock that I just had to put the heels in. This is Hedgehog Fibers in the colorway Orca, and same exact pattern as the ones that I just showed you, that vanilla sock pattern. I will say this yarn, a little scratchy. I don't know if it feels like just older yarn to me. Like if you ever picked up a knitting project from like the 70s or the 80s, like if you've ever been at a thrift store or maybe you have it around your house and you feel it, it feels like that to me. And I think it's the nylon content in this. So it's a 75-25. Colorways, 10 out of 10. Pattern, like maybe a 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10. And the reason why I say that, I am not a huge sock wearer. And I've heard a lot of people on their podcast talk about like, eventually you'll come up with these magic numbers and these magic numbers will fit your foot in this perfect way. And I don't really, I think all socks kind of fit okay. And I guess that's just because I usually wear no-show socks and those like don't fit anybody's feet. So my standard of sock fitting is very, very low. But I do really like this pattern. So if you're not fussy about the way that the sock fits, I would definitely try it. If you are fussy about the way a sock fits, I would still really try it because it is a great pattern. Back to the yarn, love this Hedgehog Fibers. So this is their sock yarn. It's in fingering. It's a 90-10, so 90% merino. And then the 10, they just said is manufactured fibers. It is so soft though. Oh, I love it. So I would definitely wear or buy more hedgehog fibers. I don't know if I would buy more of the Shapple Wolf. I don't know. I like this color more than this. However, I might just be biased to striped socks at this point. There's something just magical about seeing these stripes come up, and everybody seems really impressed. I'm like, it's just the ball of yarn that does that, but I'll take credit. And then, in case you were wondering, sock blockers, these came from Webs, so yarn.com. I like them. I don't think you really need sock blockers, other than some sock patterns look a little silly when they're not on a sock blocker. And I have a pair that I'm knitting right now that meet that criteria. So I'll talk about that later. The sock blocker for me, not super necessary. And I think that's because I have a slightly larger foot. So when you saw me have those on the sock blocker, there's really no stretching happening. Like the toe of the sock is gonna be off the sock blocker at all times. I believe this was a one size fits all. And apparently my foot's too big. So there's that. I wear a US size 9 shoe. So if you have smaller feet than that, that might be a wonderful sock blocker. And I'll link that below if you wanted to take a look at it or if you were curious. So those were my 2 finished objects, three-ish finished objects. And I wanted to talk to you about something that I mentioned last time, and that is my Pressed Flowers shawl by Amy Christophers. It's in one of my little project bags that I sewed all by myself. And this company, I don't think it is Fringe Supply Company, Grainline Studio bought some of the old Fringe Supply Company materials or resources, and they just released a like larger version of this bag. And I already have like 6 of these or something that I sewed over the summer with literally almost no sewing experience. So if you're one of those people, like, you can do it. There's a tutorial online, but I love it because it cinches up here. It has this little handle so you can like be knitting away. Canvas. This canvas just came from Joanne Fabrics maybe. And I love it. And they have the bigger version. And I'm hoping that Grainline Studio releases those video tutorials on YouTube, because I will make a larger one. Even with having the tutorial for this smaller version, probably would be able to figure it out for the larger version. But once again, really no sewing experience. So having a little video to hold my hand sounds amazing. So, Amy Christophers Pressed Flowers shawl. And let's see, she has since come out with a cowl and a cardigan. I will probably not knit either of those, but I love the shawl. Y'all, this is so pretty. Actually, it looks really good on camera too. So it's all bunched up at the bottom. And I mentioned last time, this pattern gave me some trouble. So after I was done filming, I said, I'm going to put that in timeout, and I need to take it out of timeout and knit on it. And I did, and I started all over. And this is what I have to say. Not a difficult pattern. It's mosaic knitting, so it looks like this really tricky color work. It really is not tricky at all. You just need to know how to make one right, make one left, slip stitches, and you too could have this beautiful pattern. Beautiful pattern. The tricky thing for me is the first, you cast on here, And the cast on is a little weird because you're only casting on like 8 stitches or something. And then you start increasing, and probably after you do like the first flower, it goes from written instructions to a chart with written instructions. And the thing that tripped me up was I had done the written instructions. It was time to transfer to the chart. I set it down, waited a day or so, came back, started with the chart, didn't realize that there were written instructions that you had to read with the chart. So like the first couple of stitches at the beginning of the row and at the end of the row, you needed to do something that's only written, it's not on the chart. And if you were sitting down and you are a diligent reader, you would totally know that. I felt so silly once I figured it out and the rhythm came, and it was easy. It was super easy, and I felt a little silly. So read the pattern, read the chart, read the pattern, read the chart, read the pattern. And like, you just have to do that until you have this memorized, which I do now. I have made a couple of mistakes. You probably can't see it from back here, but a couple of those flowers here and there, I ended up kind of purling the top of them occasionally. And honestly, I can't find one. I'm sure if you were looking for it super carefully, you might find one on the screen and be like, ha! But I showed my husband and I said, hey, can you see where I messed up? And he like looked really hard and he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I figured if he didn't notice the mistake, then probably nobody else would. And it was just a me problem more than anything. But I love this. I love this. I am probably not going to do the border chart. So the border chart has this pattern and it's like condensed. So you put flowers a lot closer to one another along the border. I don't think I want that. I think I just want this bigger and then bind it all off. So I'm just going to keep knitting and knitting and knitting until my yarn is gone. So what yarn am I using? I am using the Farmer's Daughters fibers, and it is her Juicy DK. The owner of Farmer's Daughters Fibers, Candace, has a podcast that I love, and she's so cool. I just want to be her friend for sure. This is the color Ronk Bronk. Farmer's Daughters Fiber has a brick and mortar store in Montana, and it looks beautiful. They have a beautiful website that has a sales section, and Candace is hilarious. I really like her knitting podcast. She is a wonderful sales person. Every time I watch her podcast, I want to buy things. This color is called Shipwrecked. Now, full disclosure, I did not buy these from Candace. I bought them from Wool Warehouse, which is a website and I think a store in Illinois. So I bought these online, wasn't quite sure what they were gonna look like. This Ronk Bronk is coming across very brown, but there are some beautiful purple undertones in it. This white kind of cream colored, which is coming across a little yellow, has these little flecks of kind of like neon yellow, and there's some greens and blues and some dark purples. And honestly, it's creating something that I really, really, really love. And I wanted something that was a bit more neutral that could go with a variety of things. So I think that this is gonna fit the bill. And I like the shaping of it. I think it's gonna look cute when it's like this, you know, up and around. I can see it. I can see the finished object, and I'm so excited to wear this one. Oh, I'm so excited. I hope I actually wear it. And then, what else did I want to say about this? Oh, The one thing, and I feel so silly to admit this, I was like, this is beautiful. This is so exciting. And I was knitting it and I was loving it. I forgot that it wasn't going to be two-sided. So this is what the back of it looks like. It's mosaic knitting, so those aren't truly floats, or maybe they are floats. I'm not sure. Different look, different vibe. Actually, I don't hate it on camera. It's kind of pretty. But I was definitely surprised. I was like, oh, of course it's going to be two-toned, or like not two-toned, reversible. Not a reversible pattern. Felt a little silly that I didn't connect the dots there, but it's very pretty. I am hoping to finish that up soon so that I can wear it in the spring. I have seen some people do some really fun colorways, like some neons. Marissa Made podcast, I think is... She starts her podcast with like 10 different names. I think it's Marissa Made. And she had a lovely one in kind of neon colors, which I very much enjoy. So will I knit that pattern again? Maybe. I very much like it now that I understand it. And I think I'm just going to like delay on saying if I will make it again or not based on how much I wear it. Guys, I really want to wear the things that I knit and that I make. I'm gonna have a little maker's moment. Okay, so that's it for finished objects. That's it for what I'm working on. I have some other things kind of laying around, but I will save those for next time. I do have a couple of acquisitions. I don't know how interesting this will be to people, but I bought another twist cable. So I have Chow Goo interchangeables. I've had them for about a decade at this point. I needed a new small 37-inch cord. This is the first cord that I've had to replace. I don't know what I was doing, but I put a lot of tension where the cable meets the cord, and when I did that, it kind of bent, and it wasn't that big of a deal. I was still able to use it, but I figured this 37-inch is a cord that I use a lot, so if I had to, that would be great, so that I could just have multiple projects going at the same time. And then I did a subscription box, which I've never really done before, and this is the second shipment. This comes from Sweet Sparrow Yarns, and it has a little stitch marker. This is the colorway in block. It's like a Celtic festival, maybe. It does come with this lovely card that tells me all about it. Yes, a Celtic festival. It is in her house wren base. It's an 85 merino 15 nylon tweed, 100 grams, 438 yards, fingering weight. I haven't knitted with any Sweet Sparrow yarns yet, but I'm very excited to try it out. I just think the depth of her colorways are really pretty. I am so glad that I picked her to do any yarn subscription box kind of thing with, because she does push me out of my color combination zone a little bit, but everything that she has sent me, I'm like, ooh, that's pretty. So I don't know what I'll do with this. If you guys have any ideas, one skein fingering, it is an 85-15. I don't think it's gonna make great socks. It's just a little soft. Similar to my hedgehog fibers. They feel similar. But with this, I guess I just have to see how it'll wear. I don't know, 100% merino might be tricky. So those were my two acquisitions, and then I'll just round it out pretty quickly. I finished a book. It was a recommendation from my father-in-law. I have no idea why he recommended this book to me, but it is The Knight's Ransom by Jeff Wheeler. It is about knights, like Knight, and you follow the story of a knight, and he is going around and like participating at festivals, like jousting and things, and there's like war happening, and there's a love story in there. There might be a little bit of magic, but I like didn't quite pick up on what was happening. There's like a fountain that may or may not be giving him magic powers. It was interesting. It read very much YA to me. So if you have somebody in your household or you that are interested in reading kind of more of not a deep novel, just a fun novel, it reminds me of the movie A Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger. So if you want kind of that vibe, maybe a little Ella Enchanted in there, like mashup. There's not as much magic, but it was an interesting read. Like I said, do not really reread books, so I do not plan on rereading this one. But if you have somebody in your household that kind of likes medieval history, but it is kind of fantasy and not historically accurate whatsoever, it's like in a made-up place, try it out. Try it out. It was the Jeff Wheeler is a good writer. He is like a bestseller. It has amazing reviews on Amazon. Wasn't quite my cup of tea, but well written, good story. I think it's worth your time, particularly if you like young adult fiction and stories about knights. And then last but not least, I wanted to share a recipe with you. So I'm so excited about this one. I found it at the beginning of January. I am gonna make it again today. I think it'll be my 5th or 6th time making this, and it is close to the end of February. We don't repeat food. I am a craving food person, so very rarely do I want the same thing week after week, unless it's pizza. I love pizza. But this recipe is a 1 bowl chocolate chip banana bread, and it is so good. So if you have some bananas that are getting a little brown at your house, you have those chocolate chips. I am not a huge fruit in baked goods person. Banana bread, pumpkin bread, I can like, all right, zucchini bread, yeah. But I'm not gonna want them 6 times in a month, that's for sure, until you put chocolate chips in that banana bread, and all of a sudden, I want it 6 times in 2 months. So I definitely recommend this one if you do have those bananas laying around. Even if you don't, buy those bananas, let them sit, make the chocolate chip banana bread. It's amazing. So that's it for me, guys. I hope to see you all again soon. And just so you know, it means the world to me that you have clicked on my video, that you have sat and knitted or, drank your coffee or listened to me or whatever you're doing over there. And please like, comment, subscribe, all of those things make me so happy. And I will see you all next time. Bye, everybody.